And ready?
Yeah, we're all good.
Okie dokie.
All right. So this is the next part of the Loved Up Instructor Mastermind series. And my name is Allison Tibbs, and we're going to talk today about how to monetize your expertise. This is a huge topic that I have found to be a conversation that comes up quite a lot when I speak with different instructors, teachers, people who are brand new into teaching, training, coaching, instructing, and even veterans, those who've been around for a while. So this is a great opportunity to think, no matter where you are on your journey of instructor world or fitness, training, teaching, this is a great thing to think about and start incorporate into your brand, into your business, to create a little bit more leverage and freedom into your business. So go to the next slide. So the main idea here is that if you are an instructor or a teacher or a trainer or doing anything in the world of wellness, fitness, nutrition, teaching, yoga, any of that, there are a couple of things that tend to be on top of mind for a lot of people because we're in such an energy business. The first is feeling overwhelmed and feeling limited in what you can do and how you can move forward to make more money, to elevate your brand, to do different things. Second is you understand that your time is so valuable. And I find that a lot of instructors that I work with, a lot of instructors that I coach and mentor, often tell me that the biggest thing that takes a hit in their business is their self-care, their programming. And by programming, I mean programming for your classes, sequencing for your classes, programming for your clients, as well as personal development. Being able to actually take the time to show up as your best self in your field, because you're typically doing so much for other people that tends to fall to the wayside. Ultimately, we're looking at how to create more leverage for yourself, especially when you need time off or want to lessen your workload. Next slide. So here's today's agenda. We're going to talk about how to identify a profitable expertise platform. This is something that may sound a bit intimidating. It may sound a bit, Allison, I'm just a teacher or I'm just a personal trainer. And I hear you. And I used to say that all the time. Like, I just want to train. I just want to teach. But as I learned throughout my journey is the teaching and the training was great, but it was also creating a lot of challenges for me in terms of wanting to take vacations, wanting to be able to make money while I sleep, and being able to do things if I can't teach or train. If I get sick, if I get hurt, what is like this leverageable insurance policy that I have already built into my business that can keep my business afloat? Then we're going to talk about how to share your experiences as a way to generate income, and even better, to do it while you sleep. And then we're going to explore ways to continue to build and grow without investing too much time. A lot of people really struggle with, well, I have to keep creating content. I don't have the time to create content. This is an opportunity to learn some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way that have helped me to really build that. So that's what we're going to talk about. And if you have any questions or anything, you can always message in the chat, or you can write them down and message me or Mandy later, and we can get to those questions as we go through. So let's go to the next slide. So before I begin, I want to quickly introduce myself. There is a lot of kind of jobs that I have here. A lot of my friends always say, you have so many jobs. And I laugh at that because I feel like I do have a lot of different things that I'm doing. But what I found is that I look at what I do as multiple streams of income. And that was a big shift that I had to make when I first started moving out of just teaching and training, was that there are many different ways that I can make an income. And by creating a little bit more flexibility and leverage in what I do, whether it's from training and teaching, and then moving on to other things like coaching and consulting, all that really helped me to generate that. So it may look like a lot of things, but what I want to do is walk you through a little bit of the thought process behind everything. So if we take a look at the first one, I started off as a personal trainer and group fitness instructor. That was my bread and butter. That's how I spent most of my time. From there, I started to create content and started blogging. From the blogging turned into me becoming a best-selling author and an international speaker, where I have spoken in the United States, Europe, Asia, the Caribbean, Mexico, Canada, Europe. So that kind of led into then me being sought out as a coach and a consultant from different companies, different clients. And then from there, also opportunities to become a brand ambassador or AKA an influencer. I really don't like using the word influencer. It feels very, it feels like it's not a, I don't know. This seems very, I don't know. This is not a word that really resonates with me. So I like to say brand ambassador, where I actually have a few brands that I work with who we have a contract with, and I generate income through those partnerships. So what I'm saying is that you can start off on your journey as a trainer, as an instructor, as a teacher, but how I was able to be able to shift how much time I'm teaching and training to where I'm doing it only when I want to, only when I need to, and with people that I truly love and want to work with, and at studios I only really want to work at for whatever reason it is, to being able to generate enough income to sustain what I'm doing and still be able to travel, still be able to dictate my schedule, and to make time for the self-care and all those things. So while it might look like a lot, it all flowed into one thing. And I actually have more time now than I did when I was just teaching and training a bunch of classes a day, a bunch of hours on my feet, lugging kettlebells all over San Francisco, and just being run down and worn out. So this is what we're going to talk about, is how to leverage expertise and what to really do with that. So on the next slide. So the first thing to think about is your thing. What is your thing? And I like to say this is the question that you have to ask is, what am I an expert on? And this can be really frustrating. It can be really daunting. It can be really nerve-wracking for people because sometimes we don't really think that we're an expert in something. Sometimes we feel as though we have like the imposter syndrome. I was talking to one of the women who was in the last series, and we were just talking on Instagram, and she was asking me questions about how to monetize her brand. And there was a little bit of trepidation because she said, I don't really feel like I'm an expert in this. I don't really feel like I can just get up on a stage and talk to people about this because I've never done it before. And there are so many other people who are really great at it and who've done all these things. And we had a really good, but an hour-long conversation, really breaking through some limiting beliefs. So here are some things that I would recommend if you are stuck on, I don't quite know what my thing is. So the first thing is just ask yourself, what is one area that you love to share and talk about? So I have one of my clients that I work with. I mentor her, and she is a group fitness instructor, but what she loves to talk about is vegan cooking. That is her passion. She recently became vegan, and she's just been really just all on board about it. She's been plant-based now for 7 months, but she has created some of the most beautiful recipes, some of the tastiest recipes. And so we started really talking about how can we take that and monetize that. So currently we're working on a cookbook that I'm going to help her put together to help her to monetize her expertise and her passion for plant-based cooking for fitness professionals, for people who are really into wellness and fitness. Next thing you can ask yourself, what is one way you can help your students continue their experience off the mat or outside of the studio? This is something that I think if you've already established a brand in your teaching and you've already established a brand in your class structure or style, what would be really beneficial for you is that they carry that experience they had with you for the 45 minutes, 60 minutes, 75, 90 minutes with you in class. How can they translate that into an experience every single day? I was talking to a fitness instructor at the assembly who is really creating this really amazing brand around connecting the mind, the body, and movement. And I started asking her questions. What is one way, if someone asked you at the end of class, how can I feel like this every day throughout my day-to-day life? I'm a very busy lawyer. I tend to forget to do these things and give. And we created a challenge. And so she created this whole challenge where every day she would drop off in a text message format a challenge of the day, and it was linked to a Slack channel, and people would comment and message what their experience of the challenge of the day was. And it was a paid challenge, and it went great because her students wanted more of her, not just on Mondays and Wednesdays. They wanted her as much as possible. So that was a really easy way for her to create some additional income and to create a more deepened experience with her students. Another thing is, what is one challenge or obstacle you've overcome that can benefit that can be a benefit to your students. This one to me is one of my favorite ways to look at things, because if you have the imposter syndrome that's just like beating down your door listening to this workshop, this is a great one, because if you've overcome something and you take some time and think about what were the steps that you did to overcome it, you're now an expert in that, because you overcame it and you have a system that worked for you. Now, would it work for everyone? Probably not. But chances are, as a teacher, as an instructor, as a trainer, we are very aspirational in what we do. So a lot of people connect with us, come to our classes, interact with us, because there's something in us that they see that they want to aspire to or be connected to. And if you share a story or you share your experience, for example, I'll use myself. I use my experience with mental health, with severe depression and anxiety, 2 failed suicide attempts. I had a lot going on for about 20 years of my life before I learned how to manage it. And I took a different stance on really managing my health and my well-being through fitness, nutrition, self-care, and self-love. And so I was able to create a lot of different products, a lot of different things that I could put out there that could help people. And yes, of course, I wanted to share that with people to help them. And it wasn't all about making money, but eventually when I realized I had a really great platform, it made just more sense to create more hands-on, high-touch products that my students and that my followers on social media and that people could actually access and have. So I will talk a little bit about what that looks like and how to build that. And when in doubt, just ask. If you're not sure, just ask someone, ask some people, what are some things that you think that I'm an expert in? What are some things that I tend to talk about a lot? What's the number one thing you've learned from me in class that you've been able to apply outside of the classroom in your day-to-day life? You'd be amazed at what your students, what your community can tell you. I love using Instagram. That's how I run most of my business. Destiny did the first installment of this series. So if you want more on how to really work with Instagram, social media, Facebook, watch that or rewatch that to get some more ideas of how to layer on what we're talking about today. But this is the key. This is where you want to start. This should be an opportunity where you just take a piece of paper, you sit down, and just like take one sheet of paper for each of these 3 points and just write down whatever comes to mind. Fill up that paper just so you have an idea of what you can do. Then go back and start to see what resonates with you. But if you feel like you're stuck, pick a few out and just ask. I will show you a screenshot of what I did last week because I'm working on a new product that I'm going to be putting out at the end of this year. So I'll show you what that looks like. So these are the first things that you want to ask yourself. Let's go to the next slide. So once you have an idea, then you want to think about a couple of different things. Think about social media. Think about the mediums you want to use and the time that you can devote. When you're creating content, these are the 3 things that are really going to dictate a lot of what you're doing. And as a content creator, if you can navigate through these and have a structure around this, it definitely helps. So I was telling you about the questions that I asked. So if you look at the photo on the left side, I did an Instagram story and I said, I have a question. What is more of a challenge for you? And it was basically, is it working out or eating healthy? I pulled my Instagram followers and I got an overwhelming amount of people that said 77% said it's eating healthy. So that right there shows me that the content that I need to create should be around healthy eating. Most of my people are looking for support with that. They may have followed me because of fitness, but what they're really saying is I have a bigger challenge at hand. I did a series of Instagram stories that were all questions and polls, and I was just asking questions. What's the biggest challenge with eating healthy? If I could create PDFs or ebooks, what would you want? And I did this whole series on all these different things. And by the end of that Instagram story thing, I had all the information that I needed to create a product that people would want from me based off of exactly what they told me. So I didn't have to guess. I asked. So this is why using social media as a platform is a really great way to use it. But understand that you're using it with a shift of focus to your brand. It's a shift of focus to those last questions I asked. If you start leading into that, you want to make sure that your tribe, your brand, your class, your clients, your students know you as that type of individual. Another thing that I did as well is I had in September, it was Self Care September. And so I did a challenge on self care. And so every single week, I was asking questions, I was doing polls just to get more details and more information. And from that information, I was able to publish a blog post that were 5 instant self care hacks because I realized that a lot of people, they understood self care and why it was important, but their biggest challenge was how do I care for myself when I don't have time for self care? And when I started to learn, I learned even more about my tribe because I realized that most of the people who follow me on Instagram and on social media are people who are strapped for time. They want to be healthy. They want to do all these things to honor their health and well being, but they just don't have the time to do it. So, in that moment, over the past month, I've been shifting my narrative and my language because that's who tends to follow me, and I want to continue to give them what they need. So you always want to kind of think about how to use social media in a more strategic and business focused way. Yes, I still share things on social media. I still share what I'm doing. I share when I go out. I share when I have a big pimple on my face. I share when I spill my protein powder all over the floor or lock myself out of my car. I still share those things because in my bio, the last line says occasional hot mess. So I want to honor all parts of who I am, but I also want to become a person that people can go to get information from. And the more I'm on brand with that, the more permission I have to create products that I can then monetize to help edify my brand. Next, you want to think about what mediums resonate with you. Are you more of a written person? So maybe doing blog posts or ebooks are a good idea for you. Or if you like verbal, maybe it's getting onto your iPhone. I use my iPhone a lot and create audio recordings and I'll just talk. Or maybe it's a podcast. If it's video, nowadays you have Instagram TV, you have YouTube, you have all these different video platforms, Facebook Live, Instagram Live. There's so many ways that you can access and just really share your content. I will, in the next couple of slides, I'm going to share with you how to take that information and do it. But I would say start with one. Start with one social media platform and start with one medium that you want to use. And then just commit to those two things. So for me, right now, my medium is has been a lot of written. I love writing, but I find that videos get a lot more engagement. So now I'm doing a little bit of both because that's really where I've evolved to. But I started with written with my blog and then moved to other things because Instagram started to elevate its access to more video because that's what people want right now. One caveat with this, unfortunately, nothing stays the same forever in the social media world. So if you're relying solely on social media and doing something the same way all the time, you just want to make sure that you're keeping your ear on the pulse of what's happening with the different social media platform that you're choosing. And then you just want to create some time. Sorry, there's a motorcycle. Then what you want to do is figure out how much time can you devote to this content creation. I get it. You're already so busy. You're teaching classes, whether you're full-time or part-time, or you're working a 9 to 5 and teaching in the mornings and the evenings, but you will have to dedicate some time to your content creation. I do 2 different methods. The first thing I do is I block schedule. So I have certain days that they're just content creation days. I don't do them every week, depending on what I'm working on at the time. So right now I'm working on a podcast. So I have block scheduled days where I just record about 4 or 5 podcast interviews in one day. And then that way I don't have to worry about much of anything else. I have some days where I will just block off an hour and say, okay, this week I'm working on an ebook. So I want to dedicate an hour a day to just working on the ebook. Whatever it means, that's 5 hours this week to dedicate to it. I don't put a lot of pressure on myself. I don't try to rush myself for a launch. What I do is I just kind of let it flow as it comes because I want it to be authentic and I want it to feel natural. And sometimes I'll start getting into it and I'll have a great conversation with someone and says, I really want help on this. If I can include it, then I put it in there. So you just want to give yourself a little bit of time. And then as you keep going, if your time becomes kind of crazy, you can actually outsource this. A couple things you can outsource. If you are blogging a lot, you can outsource for someone to go through and edit. There are so many great apps and programs out there now. Upwork is one that I use, and I think it's really, really great. You just can upload, you input what project you're looking for. I need someone to help me to format my podcast. I need someone to help me create a landing page. I need someone to create a banner for my blog or whatever it is that you're working on, or someone to create some templates for my Instagram stories. You can probably find someone who can do it really inexpensively, really quickly, and it leaves you more time to create content. What I find a lot of people doing when they first start is that they overwhelm themselves with the how they're going to do it, that they can't create, and you get that writer's block or that creative block. Don't worry about that. At this point, just block off time to work on it, to think about it. And if you have questions or you get stuck, you can always reach out to me and I can share with you some of my best tips. But we're not going to spend time with that because I want you to really start thinking about yourself as a brand and what your product should be. Because my goal for you at the end of this is that by the end, you have an idea of what you could create or do to help to add another layer to your business. All right, next slide, please. So let's look at opportunities. So when it comes to the opportunities that you have available, there are tons that you can do. There are tons of things that you can create. There are tons of things that you can put together. Here are a couple that I like and a couple that I've been working on with a few different instructors and coaches and trainers, just help get the ball rolling. The first is ebooks and books. I published my very first book probably almost 10 years ago. It was an anthology project where I was linked up with a whole bunch of other authors, and we all wrote one chapter for a book based off our expertise. The very first one I wrote about was around self-love, and I talked about my issues with depression, and that was a part of a bigger writing project. From there, I started writing more books and doing more chapters, and eventually I ended up writing my own book. But it was a really great experience of doing that. I also did some ebooks, and I'm going to share with you the easiest way to write an ebook. I'm going to share with you the easiest way to do a lot of these things, but I just want to share with you some different things that are available. Ebooks and books are great because they're just your content. You can write it out. If you can't afford an editor, just get that one friend that you have that's just a stickler for grammar. We all have that friend. If you post a typo on your Instagram, they will message you and say, you're supposed to say this instead of that. So I have two friends like that. So my very first run of any writing project, I always send it to them to read it. And luckily for me, those two people are also my ideal tribe person. They struggle with a lot of the things that I write and talk about. So it's also beneficial for them. So if you can't afford an editor, you can't afford someone to proofread, just ask a friend to do it. Give them first access to the ebook. If you're like, ebooks are a bit too much for me, PDFs and guides are so great. I recently put together a PDF. It's like a one-sheet, step-by-step guide on how to meal prep. How to meal prep, I think it's like how to meal prep 3 meals in less than an hour. And I just literally break down, I have pictures, I literally just have my iPhone, I take a picture of every single step of the process. So I set my timer, take a picture of my groceries, take a picture of everything, and show the list, have the recipes at the bottom of what I made, and it was a downloadable PDF that people could access. Those things are really great, and you can do many different things. You can have just a monthly subscription where people just pay $15 a month to be a part of a Facebook group, and every single week you're giving a PDF guide of a new recipe or a new stretch or something that you can just share with your tribe that they just get access to. And it's a really easy way for you to generate income, create content in a very quick way, but also help a lot of people. Masterclasses and webinar series, just like you're on right now. There's so many free options like Google Hangout, Meetup, Zoom. There is WhatsApp that's also available. You can do these master classes or webinar series, and all you do is create some slides. You take your topic, you divide it into 3 to 5 chunks, and you have 3 to 5 different webinars that you do. You have one price, they pay you for one price, you record it, and then you just give maybe 20 to 30 minutes per each one, and then you can save it, sell it, and that's something that can be sold over and over again. All of these top 3 things are things you can create once, and they can sit in your blog. They can sit in a Google Drive that you can have where people can access, so you can just keep dumping more and more content. And it's a private link, and they have to use a password for it, and they can access it. So these 3 things are super, super easy to put together. The biggest thing is going back to the very beginning. Think about that one thing that you could talk about forever and think about how to do that. How can you share that with people? Figure out what those questions, those burning questions are, and to start creating content to help people. If you want to get more high touch, you can start doing more interactive things like 5 to 21 day challenges. I love doing challenges because they are really great, especially I do challenges a lot when I go out of town and I'm not teaching because you can automate them. You can schedule posts. You can create a Facebook group, put everyone in the Facebook group. They can Venmo you or they can PayPal you or pay you in cash or however you want to get paid. And basically for 5 days, 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, you just have a daily challenge or a daily topic and you're just doing some daily coaching. What I do for my 21 day challenges is I typically will sit down on one weekend and I will create posts for every single day. I do a check-in post in the morning with like the challenge of the day. I have a midday post where I'll check in with them, and then I have an end of the day post. So it's 3 posts per day. This would take a little bit more time, but once you have the challenge up and running, all you're doing is just scheduling those posts in. Again, if you don't have time, hire someone on Upwork. I've hired someone for $10 to just take all my posts and schedule them in to Facebook. And I don't have to worry about it. I go on vacation, and all I have to do is check in daily to the group. I might hop in and do a live. I might add an extra PDF or guide that I created on the airplane when I was flying. Like, you know what? I think this would be really great for them. So it's a really easy way. You can charge it very low. If you want to just try it out to start, you can do a free 5-day challenge just to see if people are into it. And if people are into it, then you can say, okay, if you really like this and you want to keep the party going and really build on the momentum, we're going to kick off a full 21-day challenge starting on Monday. If you want in, comment below with your favorite emoji, and I will send you the link to sign up. Super simple, super easy. It's a great way for people to test if they like that style and for you to get feedback on how it's working, and there you go. You can also do workshops. You can do retreats. You can do different packages. Allison Smith did a lot on packages for the second installment. And on our fourth installment, Allie is going to be doing one on retreats. So these are things, too, to start thinking about, especially for the next installment. What type of retreat or workshop, what type of live event could you host based off your expertise and really monetize that? So I won't go too deep into that because I don't want to spill the beans on any of Allie's great insight, which I can't wait to look forward to watch. But that's something also to think about. You can also use Facebook groups, Slack channels, WhatsApp groups, texting, email. There's so many different ways. The biggest thing is, how can you create value? That's the most important thing, that you're creating things of value for your tribe. And you're not limited to this stuff, but I find that these have been the easiest to create. And again, if you have questions or you want to understand how that works, you can definitely reach out to me and we can set up some time to just go through and look at what your current landscape looks like, and we can put together a kind of a strategy for you to go through that. But again, don't get caught up in the what and the how. The most important thing always goes back to just create. Just create value for your people. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, here's a big one. A lot of people get really caught up in this part that it keeps them from going forward. A lot of people freak out and they're like, oh my gosh, but what about a website? What about my this? What about that? What about how am I going to get payment? All of that stuff is fine, but you don't need to worry about any of that until you create what you're going to create. Doesn't even matter. It's not even worth it to even think about this. Create what you need first. And then here's some of the tools that I keep in my toolbox. My favorite tool that I use is Canva. Canva is a free service. There is a paid service, but I've gotten most of the stuff that I need through Canva. It's a great design tool that you can use. It is so simple to use. It is one of the easiest things that I found. There's some other ones that people like PicMonkey. I've used WordSwag is another mobile app that you can use, but Canva's has been the best because it has a really good web interface and a really good mobile interface. So I literally create banners for stuff. I create covers for ebooks in about 5 minutes using Canva. It's so simple. It's so easy. You go to canva.com, you type in ebook cover. You'll have tons that you can choose from, tons of free options. They also have paid ones. They also have a function where you can hire someone within Canva to design something for you. So it's the easiest thing. It's canva.com. if you're not using it for Instagram story templates or for your banners on your Facebook groups or any type of stuff for social media, definitely give it a shot. The next thing is a way to keep an email database. I use iContact. It is a paid service just because I send a lot of emails. I have a lot of different products. So I have a email drip campaign for my Meal Prep Like a Boss guide. I have one for my clean eating guide, which is basically just the tips on clean eating, some recipes, a grocery list. So I have one there. So I have a lot of different things for my clients, for my students. So I have a lot. So I use the paid version because I get a little bit more options to it. But you can use MailChimp. You can use a lot of different services to send emails. Or you can kick it old school and just create an email database in Excel that you have. Whenever you want to send something, just copy and paste the emails, BCC everyone so they don't see it, send out the email, and you're good to go. But you want to have a place to have emails. And I'm going to tell you this is what's really important. Even though I would say 80% of my business is generated through Instagram and social media, I still make sure that I have everyone's email addresses. At any given moment, an app can close, can get bought, can get shut down, and all of your contacts, all of your followers, everything you have can be gone just like that. So if you have your database of emails in an Excel spreadsheet that's yours, then at least you still have ways to contact them. I once had a client who is in the tech space, and he basically was just like, email is dead. And, we had this long conversation about it. And once I explained the reason why I still use email, it really opened his eyes to it. And now he has his email database that he uses because he knows the great insurance policy if you lose it. Emails are more, I would say your email list as you grow it is going to become more valuable than your followers because you have more of an opportunity to generate income from your email list than you might have with social media. A landing page, all the landing pages, it's a one-page website that you can use. If you want to know what a landing page looks like, you can go to Goal Digger, GOAL, Digger, DIGGER.com, and you'll see my landing page for my latest ebook. And that's just a page you can go to. I use lead pages, leadpages.net. That's been the easiest one for me. People call them squeeze pages. And again, I'm getting deep in this just that way you can record this. You'll have the recording. When you get to this page or get to this phase of your content creation, go back to this page and just listen to all the things that I'm sharing. But I'm going in detail because I'm hoping when you go back and create something, this will be here for you. And maybe what I'll do for Mandy is I will send this in a PDF template so that way you can just check it off and know what they are. So I will make a note for myself to do that. The next is you want a payment option. Just figure out how you want people to pay you. Is it Venmo? Is it cash? Is it credit card? Is it check? Is it PayPal? Is it Stripe? Figure out how you want them to pay you. So that way, once they pay you, you have their information, and that way you can send them what they need, which leads into the next. What's your delivery method? Are you going to send in a PDF? You can use Adobe. You can use WordPress if you have a blog. I dump all of my media into my blog, and then it gives me a link that I can send it out. Waivers and insurance. This is something if you're doing more prescriptive work. So if you're saying that you're going to help people to improve low back pain, it might be in your best interest to have a waiver or insurance on the back end just to make sure that if someone says, I tried this and it didn't work, I got hurt, you are protected. Especially in the world of social media now where people are posting anything. I always get a kick out of when I go, I'll see ads and I always click on them to see what content people are creating. And I'll see some really crazy claims. And sure enough, at the very bottom, there's some type of disclaimer. There's something there in the fine print for them to cover themselves. So you just want to think about that. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out and we can talk more about what that is. Or if you have a lawyer or someone to look over it, that's a great thing to do. The last 2 or 3 are more like phase 2. So once you feel like you're starting to create some content that's making money for you, then you can invest in a really full service website or a blog and get some domains if you want. But I've been able to do a lot of this stuff without having a website or putting my products on websites. So there's a little bit of savviness that comes from it. But again, this heavy heavy slide is really just a resource for you to look at some things. So again, I'll create that PDF for you that you can get and access through Mandate. So these are the tools that you'll need eventually as you create. But the first thing is to create first. Let's go to the next slide. So once you've started creating content, the idea is to keep growing and to keep going. And you'll hear the term used, evergreen, which is how to evergreen your content. And evergreen just means you create something once and then you put it into a different spot. So for example, when I first started out really thinking about creating more ebooks and different things like that, what I did was I went to my blog. I started blogging. I was blogging pretty frequently. And I clicked on one of the tags because you can always tag your blog post. And I clicked on my healthy eating blog posts. And I had a list of all of the blog posts that I wrote over the past 3 years around healthy eating. Now that's a lot of blog posts. And so what I did was I took all the blog posts and I wrote out the title of each one and I put them in an order. I created a sequence. I created a narrative structure. And I started to look to see what's the very first thing. If someone wants to eat healthy, what's the very first thing they need to learn about healthy eating? I found that blog post. I moved it first. By the end, I copy and pasted each of the blog posts into a Word document. And by the end of that, I had a pretty comprehensive ebook. Each blog post became a chapter. And I just took a little bit more time on each blog post to expand a little bit more, add a few photos, and I had about a 60-page ebook on healthy eating that I was able to distribute at a conference when I was speaking at. So I went to speak at a conference on healthy eating for lawyers, and that was the ebook that I sold after I spoke. It was an easy way to do it, to put it together. It took me about a couple of hours, but I already had the blog post. So if you're not ready to create an ebook yet, just start blogging. Just start creating content, and then in about 3 months, go back and just say, what are all the blog posts that I wrote about this topic? And see if you can put them together to create an ebook or a book. If you are on IGTV or YouTube, what you can also do is take your short form videos that you're doing and take some time, if you're comfortable, because at this point you're comfortable doing videos, just sit down and record yourself doing a video or a webinar. And then from there, you can save all of the links of the video. You can put it out into an email series and charge, $30 and say, hey, I have this webinar series all about yoga moves that will help to relieve back pain and build a stronger core and improve your posture. Something like that. You take all those videos that you've created, put some content under each video, and now you have a webinar series that people can access over and over. If you're a personal trainer, you can literally just record yourself doing a bunch of your favorite core moves, and you can put together a workout video series on progressing through different core workouts. I've done that. I actually do that with some of my clients who no longer train with me because they've moved away or have moved on from training and they still want to work with me. I do a monthly subscription plan where every single month I have new moves, new progressions for them. I also throw in some recipes. I throw in some just fun self-care tips. So it's a very well-rounded approach, and it's been going pretty well. I throw them into a Facebook group so they can get more questions from me. But it's just taking content that I've already had and putting it together. You can also take your blog posts and just read them. Record yourself with your iPhone, create voice memos, get a good pair of headphones or a good microphone, record yourself reading your blog posts. There's something different. Some people don't like reading. Some people like to listen to stuff. Those blog posts can turn into audio trainings. You can actually do a 10-part audio training that you can get. Go to Upwork.com, ask someone to just format the videos, put a little music to start it off, and create an intro and an outro. They'll put it on all of them. They will give you the formats, the files. You can just send them out once a week for 10 days or for 10 weeks or 12 weeks. You have a 12-week audio coaching program already created and available. You can also do IG polls and Facebook polls to create guides for you, like I showed you earlier. What's more important, working out or eating healthy, why, what challenges? And from there, I was able to create 10 different guides. I'm turning those guides into just kind of like a roadmap to healthy eating that I'll be launching in a couple of weeks. So this is what gets really fun to me, is I think, how can I take what I've already done and just create something different or new with it without having to do a lot more content creation? This is how you keep growing and how you can build that content. And it allows you to start to see what works. So if you put something out, I'll have certain things where people are like, no one buys it, or I get like 3 people. I'm like, okay, they didn't like this format. I'm going to take it and try to make it an audio training. And sure enough, they like the content delivered via audio versus on a PDF. So it does take sometimes some test and error, but again, this is another thing to look at after you've been creating a little bit. That's been going really heavy here in the slides. All right, let's go to the next slide. We are wrapping up very soon. So the last thing is to think about is how to continue on that growth pattern, engage your tribe. What I realized when I first started off with creating content is that I was so stressed out because I was the one constantly thinking of what do I need to create? How do I create this? And what I realized is people weren't really into what I was releasing and launching because it was more about what I thought they wanted. Instead, I started to ask questions. I started to ask people using polls, using surveys. You can definitely just create a survey. You can be a paper survey just at the end of your class to say, hey, could you fill this out? I'm working on some new things. When your students hear that you're working on something new that's not related to class, they get super excited. And then they start asking you over and over again, like, hey, what's a new project you're working on? I always talk about that in class and people get really excited. So it's definitely something you can do. Just get a piece of paper, do a quick survey. You can also send out a link. You can use Google Forms or SurveyMonkey and send that out to get some feedback. Ask real questions. Ask the questions that you want to know. Sorry, the dog is drinking water. So if you hear some weird noises, it's very hot right now for him. The next is choose a few lifers. Choose a few people. I call these my lifers. These are the ones that no matter what I release, no matter what classes I take, they are typically the ones who are always like, sign me up. Where do I go? I want to be there. I spend a lot of time researching them. I research what they're posting on social media. I listen to what they're talking about. Once a quarter, I take them out to coffee. And I say, talk. What's going on in your life? What's new? What challenges are you facing? I get so much content and information and data from them. And they know what I'm doing and they're excited about it because they want to be a part of the process. So I have my lifers and we talk about things. It's been really helpful for me because sometimes I don't get it right every time. So I can really get some honest feedback about it. I ask them about pricing. What would be too much for you to pay? Okay, I would not pay more than $25 for this. Great. So then I make sure that I don't charge more than that because that's like my target audience. Listen to what your students are saying in class. I always find that if you before class just kind of hang out with your students before class starts, you hear so much information. I hear about the new diets that they're using. I hear about what celebrities are following for their fitness guidance. I learn about the different, new beverages, skincare products, all the things they're using. And I use that as a way to either create more of a conversation or to get more information. Also, I pay attention to the questions they're asking during and after class. If I have a lot of people coming up to me asking about certain diets or certain whatever, then I know that this is a big question and probably more students are having these questions too. So engage your tribe. And this is something that you can start doing right now to get information. So if you only could do this whole workshop, I would say the first slide where I ask you the 3 questions and this slide where I ask you to engage your tribe, these are the 2 places to start. These are 2 places where you can start getting information and get the juices flowing. All the stuff in the middle will come. But first, you need the right information and you need to have the right time and space to really create. So that is what I have. So let's go to the last slide here. So here's your homework. I'm a big fan in action and some homework. So the first thing is go back to that first slide or the last slide and choose your expertise. Go and figure out what is your thing. What are you an expert on? Once you've narrowed it down, get feedback from 5 people. It can look like this. You can say, hey, I'm thinking about putting together some type of ebook or some type of challenge or some type of video series on blank. Do you feel like this is something that people might want? And do you feel like I'm a trusted source to talk about this? Listen to the feedback. Don't take it personally if they say no. That's totally fine. It may mean going back to the drawing board, or it may mean talking to 5 more people. And if you're really passionate about it and you want to talk about it, the good news is there is space for this. There are people who will listen. You just have to find them. And once you find those people, start to figure out what it should look like. Do they want it in an ebook? Do they want it in a video series? Do they want it as a podcast? Do they want it as a guide? Do they want it as a workshop? Figure out how they want to receive that. And then from there, you choose the proper medium and you start creating. The creation process can be commit to 20 minutes a day for 7 days. And the creation phase is you just take your phone, you set an alarm for 20 minutes, and you just schedule into your calendar creation time. Do a 30-minute block. That way you have 5-minute buffer to get yourself centered. One of my clients likes to sit and meditate before, and then she gives herself 5 minutes to go and just like shake it out, because for her it's so heavy because she's not a creative. And she's like, Allison, I've never been good with writing. I'm horrible in front of a video. I said, that's totally fine. So she wanted to create a video series based off of the feedback that she got. And so I said, okay, for the next 7 days, just spend time creating videos. Create 7 videos, turn on the camera, and just talk in the camera for 20 minutes. You can talk about your topic. You can talk about whatever you want, but get yourself comfortable being in front of the camera and just talking. And at the end of that 7 days, I had her send me all the videos, and we actually had 3 really good videos. And 3 videos is everything you need to create a really great video series. From there, we did an intro video, and then we did a conclusion video. She had 5 videos that were 5-minute intro, 5-minute conclusion, and 2 20-minute videos all about what her expertise was on. And then from there, we learned how to package and everything. But the act of just sitting down and doing it is the most important thing. And you might surprise yourself. So once you figure out those different things, then you just go and promote it and sell it. And that's where you go back to those middle slides that I shared and start to think about what you need. But if you do need more help, as I said, I will get that PDF to you, and we can definitely set up time to talk a little bit more. But this is your homework, or this is a challenge. When you're ready to go, this is the step. I do this process every single time I start a new product or a new project. I figure out what I want the area of expertise is. I get the feedback from 5 people. And now that I'm a bit more, my ego doesn't get bruised as much. If someone gives me like, that sounds stupid, or I would never pay for that, then I ask, well, what would you pay for? Or what would be more valuable to you? Or what would you like to see? Or how can we do this? I've even done some collaborations with people. I've done a collaboration of video series, interview series with different people to just talk a little bit more about it, because my tribe wants a bit more in-depth stuff. Maybe I have, for example, if you're really into nutrition, I have a very holistic approach to nutrition, but I have people who follow me that are on keto, who are paleo, who are plant-based. So I found some of the people that I really respect in that field who are plant-based, also people who are vegan or paleo, and I just do an interview series with them and have them talk about it. So there's so many different options. So don't let the fact that you don't know how to create, you're not really good in front of a camera, you don't really know how to work the technology, you're horrible at social media, you don't have an email list, all of that stuff is just your ego leaning into fear. That's all that is. Because the reality is you are an expert in something in your space. You wouldn't be on this webinar if you weren't. And you just have to figure out how to really dig deep for yourself and find that thing and then move forward with the steps in the process. So last slide, before we wrap up. Ultimately, for me, my goal for you is for you to have more freedom. So this webinar series for me was this like permission granted for you to start creating more opportunities, more streams of income, create more leverage, and ultimately more freedom for you and your business. When I first started training, I did that because I was so passionate about it. And I went to group fitness, but I got to the point where I had adrenal fatigue. My depression and anxiety hit me like a rock, and it was hard for me to get out of bed in the morning, and it was hard for me to really do my job and to show up for my people. And once I started to take some time off and start to create different things, I asked myself, how can I still be of value if this doesn't fix itself? If I could no longer train or no longer teach anymore, and I'm still passionate about this, how can I still use the gift and my passion? And this is how it all evolved for me. And I can honestly say now that I'm starting to feel myself lead into more of a life of freedom, and one where I can show up in a much more resourceful and valuable way to my tribe, to my followers on social media, and most importantly, my clients and my clients and my students. So if you have any questions about that, or if you just are like, okay, this was great, but I need a crash course again, you can hit me up on Instagram at Allison Tibbs, or you can go to my website. There I have a link where you can submit a form to do a 30-minute strategy call with me, and we can set it up and we can get you going there. But that is it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, I would love to hear them and to work through them with